Hi, my legal name is John from ARTV, and I've got another confession to make. Hey neighbor, welcome back to Beyond ARTV. Long time no see. I'm sorry about that. It's been a weird year for this channel, but we're gearing back up, as in I hope 2024 is going to be much more productive. I wanted to talk a little bit today about something that had been bothering me for a very long time, but much like an underlying illness, I didn't understand the diagnosis or that I even had the disease. This was not a literal sickness, although it is something that consumed me in many ways mentally, and instead of these metaphors, I'm going to stop beating around the bush and tell you that I'm talking about LastFM. I'm not here to throw shade or slander the name of this platform, LastFM, or even the others that might get brought up, from AOTY to RYM, Metacritic, whatever you're on, Letterboxd if you're into film. Very quickly, if you're not careful, things can become consuming and that becomes toxic to the point where it becomes this vicious circle where you're constantly stuck in trying to consume more in order to appease others and not necessarily yourself. I joined LastFM Pro in December 2018. I had not previously been on the site, but I wanted something to keep up with my Spotify plays. I really missed the feature from iTunes and other MP3 services back in the day where you could see the number of times you would play a single track. It started off as a lot of fun, and I only blame myself for where I ended up, but I want to talk about why, for me personally, it started draining the excitement and the pleasure of music out of the experience. Don't get me wrong, this was a subtle change over time. This was not something overnight where I woke up, looked in the mirror the next day, and didn't recognize myself. Instead, it was like I noticed, hey, I'm no longer really like air guitaring or air drumming or headbanging or whatever. I'm sitting here staring at a screen, looking at how many times I listen to this song, looking at the shout box, looking to see what other people are saying, what's the top listener, things that don't matter at all, and steal away from the fact that I'm not even paying attention to the album or the single in front of me. That likely sounds silly as hell at surface level, like, wow, this guy's not air guitaring anymore and he thinks he's got a problem. But trust me, I know myself. It is somebody who fixates on certain parts of songs and often moves to those parts of the songs. I grew up doing it and I can't explain it. I have to move when I hear music. But when I'm distracted, I don't get into that mindset much at all. It wasn't exactly a specific moment that gave me the revelation that I needed to step away in order to enjoy my music more. It's just the type of mind that I have. I have mild OCD, ADHD. It's very easy for things to get stuck inside my head and also distracted. In the past, I did myself a favor and would often sit with the lyrics in front of me, and I still do that. I put on a music visualizer and will pull up the lyrics on Spotify on my 2-monitor setup, and it's often a really smooth, fun experience. More than anything else, what made me realize that I had a problem, at least in terms of how I was consuming things and how I wasn't feeling as connected to the music as I wanted to be. And this happened in early September of this year. My wife and I were on an 8-hour drive from North Carolina to visit her dad for a Labor Day party he was having up in Pennsylvania. And by the time we got there, I had listened to almost 8 hours of music. And what do you know? LastFM stopped scrobbling or logging my listens about halfway through the drive. What was even more upsetting to me was the fact that I had pulled up my phone, I had opened Google, looked at my LastFM, and saw that it was still scrobbling. I was like, great, it got the fact that I listened to this Hozier album, this Cure album, some Green Day. Now, I guess I just do the rest of the drive. Everything's gonna be fine. LastFM has got this.
Several song-filled hours later.
LastFM shit the bed, and if you know anything about them, then you know that their servers are often down. I don't want to say that it's necessarily a dying site, but they haven't done a ton to bring it into the 21st century. Again, I'm not here to slander LastFM, but I do feel like a lot of the technology and the servers that they use, they're just not very reliable, and if you ask anyone on LastFM, if you're on there yourself, you know that scrobbler is broken like half the time. I'm giving you the scenic route for this journey, but halfway through the drive, essentially what happened is LastFM lost its connection to the scrobbler, and it stopped logging all of my listens, and I listened to 4 more hours of music, albums from Holding Absence and other bands like Slowdive, who had just put out a record. And what really alarmed me afterwards is my reaction to that. I was very upset. My wife was driving at the time, and I was almost freaking out at the fact that I had lost 4 hours worth of scrobbles and was going to have to log them manually. You know, if you've been there, if you're that anal about things, you will do it. You will go to great lengths. You will let it play with the very smallest sliver of volume overnight in the background just so you can catch up on your scrobbles. And that, for me, felt like a sickness weighing me down, a weight on my shoulders that I didn't even know I had. One thing about sickness is that you're often in denial with whatever is plaguing you, and that was definitely happening for me. I brushed it off at the time. I knew I was upset, but I got over it. But the next day, while the party was going on for Labor Day, I found myself inside at my laptop adding Slowdive and other records back to the queue just so it would log them so I would have an accurate representation on screen on LastFM. I was in too deep in wasting so much time on bullshit, and it was that day that I said, I'm not doing this again. This is absolutely absurd. And when I got back to North Carolina, I deactivated my LastFM Pro and logged out of my account, and I haven't been back in the 2 months since then. What's felt really helpful and productive for me since stepping away from a lot of social medias in the past few years, and also now LastFM, I found myself making playlists again and actually rebuilding some of my ones on Spotify. So if you're curious to hear what I've been building, then go give me a follow on Spotify. The link is on screen or else in the description. I've got several new playlists. Just look in the various folders like mood, genre, best of the decade collections, etc. Music and focus in tandem is a beautiful pairing, and when I find that focus, it's like nothing else, and I've found myself hitting those strides a lot more frequently since I stepped away from LastFM. For you, that could be a totally different platform. If not there, then maybe Genius and getting carried away with annotating, or if you're on one of these other sites reviewing on like AOTY, RYM, just know that there's nothing wrong. There's nothing inherently toxic about being there. It's about what consumes you or what eats up your time eventually. If it takes up more time than the actual time you're spending listening to the music, or if you're finding yourself giving distracted listens, maybe it's time to take a break or maybe even step away. One last thing I wanted to mention is that I haven't walked away from logging my Spotify stuff entirely. I just found a better space to do so. I'm on SpotiStats now, Stats FM, whatever they're calling it at this point. I had signed up for it like a year or 2 ago, and now I have a pro account over there, and I found that having the app on my phone, for whatever reason, is not as enticing or addictive to me versus the web browser. Like if I'm writing a script, it's so easy to just pop open another tab and say, how many times have I played this song, and then go down a rabbit hole. This is not sponsored, but Stats FM, my DMs are open. I have been using this platform a lot more. I've been getting enjoyment out of it. I was able to import my entire listening history dating back to 2011 on Spotify. So now I actually do have things like updated play counts. I can see what time of the day I was listening, all of these other things that probably don't matter all that much, but the pro features are very nice, and they're there if I need them, but they're not just directly in my face. Let me know how the audio sounded in this video. Got a new microphone, kind of liking this whole handheld mic thing, makes me feel like a singer. And also, let me know in the comments down below, have you had this happen to you? Have you burned out on a site like this? Or are you finding yourself on the verge of that? Let us know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.